Wind speed is 7 to 12 knots coming from the north. Air temperature is 15.5 degrees Celsius. Visibility is clear, no hydrone activity. One northern hazard light is out. There are no other LZ deficiencies. You're clear for landing.
Okay, so your windsock and your helipad lights, that's both perimeter and floods, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so do you guys have a shoulder mic with yours or no?
I don't know if we have one that attaches to it or not. Yeah, I thought I'd seen something down there.
Yeah, because one of the shoulder mics, it attaches here, and it's good for keeping this underneath your jacket and whatnot, and then you can just have a press talk right up by your face. All right, so TMR portable radio only has 2 talk groups. Here's your on-off and your volume button right here. Okay. It should come up AMT air, which is on channel 1. Okay, that's the one that's on the repeater system. So if I'm pressing that, I'm literally trying to call a radio tower, not trying to call someone else. It's going to go through the whole system. The next button over, if I want to change it, if I'm getting that out of range tone, I move this over to the second one, and now we'll come up AMT sim. Okay, simplex is direct line of sight. There is no talk permit tone. It's purely like a VHF portable radio when you're using it, whereas the AMT air, when you're talking on it first time, you got to press it in, wait for your talk permit tone, which is 3 little beeps, and then start talking. The mistake that everyone makes is that they press and they start talking right away, and it cuts off the first 2 words of their sentence every time. Okay, so wait until you hear that. If you're going over to AMT sim, remember, try to get word to us that you've gone over to AMT sim as well, and we'll get you 4 or 5 minutes back. As soon as I go to AMT sim, dispatch is out of the equation. They cannot hear us anymore. Okay, it's tight in communications. If you go too far, you're going to hear this bog, and it's going to say unprogrammed. Okay, so there's 16 banks of available channels, or talk groups, if you will, and there's 3 different banks, each with 16. So there's another switch here that moves it from A, B, and C. We've deprogrammed that on these radios. So you're only on, you don't have to worry about it, you're just on channel 1 for AMT air, channel 2 for AMT sim. Keep it simple. Okay? Now, on the side, that's your button for your backlit at nighttime. It's going to backlit the display. Here's your push to talk button. So I press that. As soon as I press that, a unique ID comes up on EHS Comms Center that says New Glasgow Aberdeen Landing Zone Officer has just pressed the button. So they know that this radio is tied with here. Okay? The next button down is our signal strength and the tower that we're going off of. Anything electronic ultimately will fail at some point, but at the same token, this is more like a cell phone. This is continually going to switch to the tower that's got a stronger signal. So the difference is that at times this gets stubborn, gets stuck on a tower. It's not necessarily the strongest. So if you're getting an out of range tone, you're not getting good coverage, press and hold that button in, and now wait for that second beep, and now it's going to do a forced refresh on the system. The bottom button down here is your squelch. Okay, that just tells you what your volume's at. The other button that's really important is your emergency activation alarm. So if we ever had a hard landing, press that orange button. You press that button, that means that you've just declared an emergency. So if you don't say anything, and dispatch is going to come back on and say, "Are you okay?" and ask you for confirmation. If you don't answer, the whole cavalry's coming, right? But at the same token, if you did hit it by accident, which we've all done, you got to own it because they know it's you. So say, "Sorry, did it by accident." How to reset it: press it in, hold it for 5 seconds, and then it can reset. Or shut off the radio for 5 seconds, wait, turn it back on, and then it resets. You have to reset yours before they can stop all the alarms going off at the comm center. Okay? If the battery gets low, it's going to chirp. You're going to hear a double beep. These batteries last quite a while. But at the same token, if it gets low, just pull those tabs and then you can switch out the batteries. Okay? Charging posts are off the back. Do not put this in a pocket that has any loose change. If metal makes contact with those, it can blow the battery. So it's got a belt clip, use it. Keep it on your belt. Okay? Anytime you're out here, have it on AMT air, just in case we're trying to get a hold of you, because we may try earlier on, what's the weather here? Because the weather's sort of lousy what we're flying through. Hey, yeah, it's better over here. So just a second, here you're going to hear an actual briefing.
This is the QE2 LCO, go ahead. Yeah, please take us 5 minutes back, please go ahead with the landing briefing. Wind speed is 7 to 12 knots coming from the north. Air temperature is 15.5 degrees Celsius. Visibility is clear, no hydro run activity. One northern hazard light is out. There are no other LZ deficiencies. You're clear for landing.
Okay, sense? I'm gonna get you, hold on to that for a sec. All right, so if we're coming out, remember we've turned on the lights. Everyone knows where the light switch is now. You've got the number for boiler operator and all that. You hear that we're coming in. We're gonna be in 25 minutes. So you're coming out, you've got the weather written down from the webcams, plus, just to reference, you've got your personal protective equipment, so your goggles, your hearing protection, your high-vis vest, your jacket, all that stuff. You're coming out, and then you're going to go into your procedures and your safety checks. So, radio, cell phone is on, personal protective equipment there, weather. So when you come out, you're going to stand on the H. Which way is north? People are turning different ways. Okay. So, look north, stand on the H and look up at the windsock. So, winds right now, if you were to record the weather, because I want you to record what the windsock's doing now, and then start doing the rest of your checks. That way if we call you early, then you're able to give it to us. So, winds are coming from where? South-southwest. Okay. How would you describe the windsock? Yeah, so that's pretty full there most of the time, so I'd say 3/4 to full, right? Okay, and the windsock's in good repair. It's not, doesn't look tethered. It's freely turning. Brand new one.
Knew you were coming.
Yeah. So I've got that and ready to go. The other thing too, then I'm going to come out and look at my lights. So I'm looking at the helipad floods. So the floods are your corner ones. All on and all shine. Remember I said over time they'll loosen up a little bit where it may come up and point at the pilot's eyes? Double check that it's where it needs to be. Perimeter lights are all on. Yes? Okay. And I can tell it's either a different light or a different globe on these two here.
New.
New? Okay. New light or new globe?
That one, that's new light, that's new light.
Okay.
Snowplow operators.
Yeah. All right. Windsock light. At nighttime, you'd see if that was on. And then hazard lights. So you have hazard lights. 2 sets here. Another set up on the corner of the building up there. You've got lights in the windsock. Any lights over here? No. Nothing lights. And if I remember, you do have at nighttime, you'll see a hazard light and you'll see a blinking there on the cell tower. Right on the west.
Identify that one too?
Yeah, so if that one's not on, that would be something that again you identify. Hey, it's not on. If it's on, perfect. Don't have to say anything.
So you would use that for your visibility check too, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
a fair way to see.
Yep. Exactly. If you can see that, that's greater than 2 miles viz. Okay?
Can't see Tim works.
Not now that the trees are full.
Right. So we've gone through the lights. Windsock was functional. Helipad clear. We're going to do FOD check again, or here, and we're going to do the whole thing. Snow and ice, obviously, no, not today. Ground access to the helipad clear. So room for the stretcher and emergency vehicles to get through. Air approaches to the helipad clear. So now you're going to be looking for the kites, birds, cranes, drones. Take a second, yeah, all that stuff to look around to see if there's any issues.
Coming out of the west.
Okay. Security people, vehicles kept clear of the landing zone and safety zone.
We have vehicles and debris and stuff.
Yeah, so for sure, those vehicles would be out of there on the other side of the fence.
So what they got laying there, the storage stuff they got laying there, that should be gone?
That should not be on this side of the
I think
fence,
it should be.
right? That same as that cone shouldn't be on this side of the fence. If it's not bolted to the ground.
It'll end up on the other side.
Yeah,
Going over there,
yeah.
it'll way over there.
So again, all that stuff needs to be outside. Remember that 100-foot perimeter took us to that fence, to this fence,
Everything inside.
there, and it's on the other side of the trees, okay? So you can see what can get blown around. And even something, if you see something loose just on the outside of the safety zone, and you can pick it up and get it out of there, I'd get it out of there. So see on there, I'd see like a loose bucket. We're gonna see it when you do the FOD walk, but just on the other side of the fence, right up against the fence, there's a loose orange tarp. Okay?
There is?
Yep.
Okay.
Right by where that the pallets are.
Okay.
So it's, again, that stuff can't be around this area, right? Security people, so again, you also want to double check, make sure that you don't have people coming around, whatnot. The deer, if there's deer on the helipad, you can tell us, but really that they're going to get out of here. They're smarter, right? And ventilation system shut down. So let's say, for instance, we've coming in, we're going to call you, as I said, 10 minutes back. Life Flight Tango to New Glasgow Landing Zone Officer. We're 10 minutes back, go ahead with your briefing. So now you would say, Life Flight Tango, this is New Glasgow Landing Zone Officer, here's your briefing. The winds were coming from the west at 12 kilometers an hour, gusting to 16 according to the weather cam. But I'm looking at the windsock and I'm seeing them coming from more south-southwest, 3/4 to a full windsock. Outside temperature, 18 degrees. It is overcast with greater than 2 miles visibility, because I can see those towers off on the distance, right? And I can see the hills over here, okay? If you can't see past the church and the fog's rolling in, right? Then tell us in that direction, right? That there's an issue. No precipitation, so you don't have to worry about it. Then you're gonna go through your hazard briefings. Any of the hazards that are in here, hit those hazards as you go. So, there's no issues for the lighting, the FOD, snow, ice, which we're gonna do here in a second, but we know that there's debris on the inside of the fence to the north and vehicles inside of the fence to the north that we need more time to maneuver or to remove from the site. Okay? And that's how I would refer to that. Any approach issues, kite or hazard light deficiencies, kites, cranes, burns. So remember, after you go through your hazards, you would say no kite, no drone activity. Okay? See a bird flying around there, but the pigeon, it's just a pigeon, and the pigeons are smarter. They'll get out of there. You see 3 pigeons walking up there on the top.
Couldn't click them all.
Security issues, no code reds going off, no, so you don't have to say that, but it's just one of those things you got to think of. Do you have a psych patient that's gone missing? Remember that film that I showed you? Another reason just to stay vigilant on what you're thinking. And then you would say, landing zone is not yet secure until we get these vehicles out of there and the debris out of there. And people. So at that 10-minute,
Get that stuff there out of there today. But
what's that?
get the vehicles out, but the stuff up against the fence, I don't think that'll be out of there today.
Yeah, even if it goes over there and behind that the auction, like the liquid air, something like that, if you can. Stuff, because again, you'd be surprised with that little bit, especially up against a fence, it can catch it and lift it up pretty easy, right? So on this, let's do the FOD walk. When it is clear, when you get those hazards out of the way, then you can tell them. The other thing too, I'd tell them, if the helicopter's coming in, I'd say, listen, can someone let those paving guys know to keep their vehicles over there? Just let them know that there's going to be a helicopter. They're working in a high noise environment. They're not necessarily going to hear or know until the last minute, right? So the same thing, remember what I said about that half-ton truck. If you came out, that truck is parked there and you couldn't move it, remember I said about the tarp and everything else? So you're looking at what is in the back of those vehicles that can get blown around, right? And again, we need to know that if you can't maneuver it, right? It may stop us from landing. We may be able to still come in and land. All right, so when we start talking here on the ground, when you start looking at a FOD walk, remember what I was saying about look for, a lot of the garbage isn't necessarily going to live on the helipad. It's going to get blown off. However, with the cracks that form on a helipad, you can easily get something like a pin that drops down in. When you're looking over the side, you don't see it until you actually do a grid search, right? That can destroy a rotor. So it's one of those things is you need to do a grid search, and it literally is like if you've got a bunch of people go 10 feet apart and it's doing a grid search of this area. We're going to do a grid search. We're going to pretend that we've done the grid search of the landing zone. Now we're going to actually do a grid search of the safety zone. We're going to fan it out every 10 feet. We're going to go out and do that 100 foot, and we're going to walk it all the way around to see what we come up with, right? Because I guarantee usually we're going to find something. And just for reference, if it's just on the other side of the fence for garbage, that needs to go as well because it's easily picked up and brought over. Okay, so let's start it here and then we'll go out. All right, come on back. So now that you've got it cleaned up, now I would be getting back on the radio to life flight yes. FOD walk's complete, everything's out of there, you're clear to come in. Then we'll say, yeah, we copy. You're back in that position, PPE's on outside of the fence, keeping an eye on scanning 360, keeping an eye on these guys that they don't come in. We'll call you 2 minutes final, you're on radio, ready to call on the board if you need it. As we get close to the ground, you see us coming in. So let's say the winds are coming from this. Which way are we ideally going to come in?
Into the wind. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, what'd you do there? Coming in this way.
Right. So remember what I was saying, we don't want to come in and drop down into a box, right? So on today, with the winds being fairly strong at times up top, we're going to have to come in either from this direction, side slip it, or this direction. We don't want to come right over that and down, okay? But just so that you know, always think, when you tell us the wind direction where it's coming from, think in your head, which direction is life flight going to be coming from? And start looking at the skies ahead of that, okay? Then, eye protection on, hearing protection. You see us coming in, radio silence unless you see a problem. Arms raised, ready to call on the board as we get close to the ground. If you see a problem, call it. Again, we'd rather be aborted 10 times than land safely once, at one time that no one ever said anything. Then we come down, we're cool down, shut down, remember, keep scanning around. Then in we go. Get someone on the inside of the door that can let us. So where we're going in is over here, unless we're meeting an ambulance, and we may just go through the bay doors, okay? One of the things when we're going in, we've got the walkway lighting there. It's a little bit better now. We can actually see where that drop off is a little bit when we're working with the stretcher. We're inside. If you can't stay out here, tell the pilots, they'll come back out, keep an eye on it, give them your number, and then when we get set to go, then we'll make sure that we get you back out. Then for takeoff, you're in the same position you were for landing, unless the pilots wanted you in a different spot. Coming in on here now, again, when we get set to take off, we're not necessarily going to be pointing in the ideal location where we can see you, so it's be ready to call an abort on the radio, right? Because the wind direction means that we're probably pointing that way. We may be able to offset it a little bit on the ground for sure. We get set to take off. If you see a flock of geese flying overhead, what do you do? Abort. Okay, abort. Geese overhead, right? Or whatever. When it's clear, let us know. Then, radio silence, we take off, wait 2 minutes, then go back out, then do your post takeoff check. Okay, and you're looking for all the same stuff that you did on the pre, documenting it, go back in, turn the lights off, then remember, notify boiler operator for ventilation control to turn it back on. Okay? Make sense?
Yep.
Clear as mud?
Crystal.
Good, good.
What about, you mentioned about having the wind at your back though?
So wind at the back is just for the scene landing zone officer. Where here, we're using the landing zone officer for more as the blocker from the known hazards where it's going to be coming from the hospital, right? So it's a little bit different because you've got a lot more people that you can't necessarily control than you can on a highway. And you get a windsock that you've already told us to wind, plus we can see it on short final, right? So the rules for scene are different than for here. Okay. All right, that's it, guys.
Great job. Thank you.
Wind speed is 7 to 12 knots coming from the north. Air temperature is 15.5 degrees Celsius. Visibility is clear, no hydrocarbon activity. One northern hazard light is out. There are no other LZ deficiencies. You're clear for landing.